The NBA's return is here, and things are going as well as they could be in a lockdown world that has put everything on hold and then some. Many even wondered if the NBA could ever really restart. Then they came up with the idea for the bubble, a section of Orlando, Florida within Disney World that would allow them to live and practice and then play games to finish out the NBA season. It's worked well enough that the season is going ahead, but the question is, what do players and NBA legends think about the bubble as a whole? Allow us to tell you. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 6. Skepticism. First and foremost, there were many players, coaches, and legends who were hesitant and even skeptical about whether the bubble system would even work. Mainly because it honestly wasn't a bubble. It was a section of Orlando that was cordoned off, if you will, in order to make things work, while also giving players and coaches and other staff the freedom that they needed to live while also not getting exposed to the virus. And that skepticism was very valid, even leading up to the bubble. People were wondering if this was the right move. If having 22 teams to play, seeding games, instead of just going right to the playoffs was anything but a money grab, and so on and so forth. Plus, many legends felt that the players wouldn't be able to stand the bubble conditions because there were a whole book's worth of rules to follow, and we do mean that literally. But the bubble went on, and it has worked well enough in order to make things go forward with the games and the playoffs, at least for the time being. Number 5. The agendas. Many legends and critics have had like minds in terms of what the NBA is trying to accomplish with the setup of not just the bubble, but who's been allowed into it team-wise. Many commentators have stated that they feel that the 22 teams, 13 of which are from the Western Conference, are there only to make sure that the best teams not just make the playoffs, but the star power that will drive the return are on prominent display. Now you might be curious as to what that means, as players like LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and more are already secured for the playoffs outside of maybe a higher or lower seed. But in this case, it's about Zion Williamson. The New Orleans Pelicans player is highly touted in the league for his size and natural skill, and his rookie season was cut short by an early injury in lockdown. The NBA really wants him in playoffs to use his name to lure in more viewers, and thus make more money. But at present, he's not in the top 8. Thus, it seems they expanded the teams invited to give his team the best shot at winning. Is this fair? Honestly, no, it's not. Because every person in the bubble brings various risks that are detrimental to the bubble process as a whole. The more people you have, the higher the chance that the outbreak could happen. At present though, they seem to have made it work, though certain reports would say otherwise. Number 4. The Snitch Hotline. As we noted earlier, the players, coaches, and staff who have gone into the bubble have a wide array of rules that they have to follow. Not surprisingly, some have already broken the rules for various reasons. One player was caught going outside the bubble because he wanted a specific kind of food that wasn't offered within the bubble. Which we kind of get because pictures from within the bubble show that food services aren't the best. But because they went outside the bubble, they're now in quarantine for 2 weeks, which means they'll be missing out on some games and have to be tested regularly to ensure that he's not infected and thus won't expose anyone else. The major catch to this though? There is what the legends are calling the Snitch Hotline, where players can literally rat on each other in order to reveal who is breaking the rules and quarantine. Why do this? Imagine if they break the bubble right before the playoffs. 2 weeks away could mean that a key player is off the court for a series and thus might hinder the team. Lest you think these players wouldn't do that, many already have. Doc Rivers even joked that by the time he's done there, won't be anyone on the court but his Clippers. Obviously, that can't happen, but it's a funny point nonetheless. Number 3. On the outside, looking in. Something that needs to be said here is that while 22 teams are inside the bubble, as well as various staff and media reporters, there's a lot of people who aren't inside the bubble, including family, friends, and more that the players would usually see during this time. Remember, the NBA season shouldn't have been over in June, but it's going into August and might even go into September, and thus causes a lot of stress for those who have families yet can't be with them. Also though, there are NBA players like Steph Curry who would usually be at these playoff games to go and root on his friends and fellow ballers, but he can't because he's not in the bubble. Truly a strange season indeed. Number 2, the courts. One thing that many NBA legends, players, and commentators are praising though is the look of the courts that have been constructed to ensure that everything is safe and fair. From chairs being 6 feet away, from having cameras in every place you can imagine to get all the shots, to the conditions for the announcers, the referees, and more. There's a lot to like about the setup, and the legends who are on commentary can't wait to break down these games. The NBA took a lot of good steps to make sure the game's purity and safety were taken into account, and it's clear they succeeded. Number 1, let the games begin. So what happens now? The games begin. That's what. This may be the most insane NBA season in history, and that includes player strike seasons, but at the very least, we're going to get an ending, and that's something to be grateful for. Who will come out on top? Could a break in quarantine lead to a rash of positive COVID tests? Which teams will outlast all the others? It's hard to say, but it will be entertaining to watch. There you go, everyone, a look at the NBA as it stands right now and what legends and players feel and think about the bubble as a whole. How well do you think these NBA games and playoffs will go? We will see some obvious problems arise from the various elements of COVID and the bubble practices. Could an infection sideline a whole team? Who do you think will come out on top? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and we'll see you next time on the channel.